Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the relative cost of college fees today compared to, say, 50 years ago. And I'm going to use accounting, so learning or seeking certification to be an accountant. There's still a lot of, you look at any job board these days, still a ton of adverts for accountants. So just looking at how different it is. So in 1971, I think it was, the advanced degrees for accounting didn't exist. So if you wanted, back then at least, if you had a PhD in accounting, you couldn't do that sort of thing. It was really a very practical type of course, and what most people did, and there were allowances for it then, there were sort of these hybrid, almost like trade schools, really, sort of a hybrid between a university, a community college, and a trade school, where you could go and study accounting, but you could hold down a full-time job at the same time. Companies that would hire you while you were doing your training or your education were obligated to give you half a day off a week to attend an afternoon, a whole afternoon course at the college, and the other classes were at night time or on weekends. So it was still fairly arduous. You had to put in, I think it was half a day on Saturday and 2 nights during the week of maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. So you had to make a commitment, but at least you could work and do hold down a full-time job at the same time. Now, if you passed your exam at the end of it and then became fully credentialed, the company typically would pay your all the cost of your college, and back then it was around, depending on the college, it was around $1,000, maybe $1,500 a year for the better colleges back in the time. So, but the company, if they paid for it, paid for your course, that they would in turn get a tax deduction for that. So it wasn't as if it was money out of their own pocket or anything. But nonetheless, if you passed, they paid and met all your expenses, including books and course expenses and so on. So you'd come out again. There was a fully qualified accountant. There were, as I recall, like a short course and a long course thing. One was for 1 year, another for 2 years. I don't think there was a 3-year course back then, or not one that I could find. That came a little bit later, say towards the end of the 1970s, that appeared. But still, it was quite reasonably priced. Let's look at an accounting, even a basic accounting course today, and let's say most of them go for 3 years. You're looking at, even in a sort of a third-tier rural college, you're still looking at about $20,000 a year. If you're looking at a city college, more than that. And if you're looking at sort of moving up the Ivy League food chain, then you can be looking at quite a lot of money. $40,000 a year, in some cases even $50,000 a year. So the difference in price and cost is huge. And now I don't know if you get a better education from it, because you can't hold down a full-time job while you're doing it. So you've only got the theory to go on, and then at the end of that, you get your certificate or your diploma or your degree or whatever. Then you've got to go and get a job. So there's a lot of benefit, I think, a lot of benefit in studying while you're also working, and of course, getting that experience, having a full-time job, and combining your theory with your practice, which is helpful. And needless to say, having a full-time job income to help you get by and live independently if you want to while you're doing it. So these are the that's the difference in the cost and the benefit. It's not far from, say, being an apprentice in an electrician or something like that. That you're able to do the training and the working and the learning all at the same time in a single pass. But today the cost is far greater. But where does that money go? Does it mean the student has a better quality course? Well, probably not. In fact, I'd almost guarantee not, because in order to get more minorities into studying accounting, and you give them a pass through, they've had to lower the bar and lower the bar and lower the bar. And so it's such a simple course now. And people that I've met who've got accounting, particularly minorities who have obviously been gifted the degrees, you meet people who've got an accounting degree and they can barely count to 10, for goodness sakes. It's a joke. So clearly it's not giving a higher standard of education, but for the additional cost, a lot of these very, very minimally qualified students are coming out of college with debts of 50, 60, 70 plus $1,000 before they've even started work for a level of education that I would argue is worse than it was 50 years ago. So it's a very... It's not something that's really benefiting the kids at all. Now, where is that money going, though? It's the value isn't going back into the students of getting a higher quality education. But if you look at the university staff there, the university administrations have exploded since the university fees were going up. And you get crazy things like, and I'll mention too, there's a student relations officer, this is an Ivy League university, was a student relations officer at the university. What they do is a bit vague, but it's only a 3-day-a-week job, so just 3 days a week. And they've got their own office and there's a staff there. And now, what do you think somebody like that will be paid? I mean, it's hardly an arduous job, but actually it's part of the NGO job gift program, where they gift jobs to their NGO buddies. Now, that 3-day-a-week university student relations officer is paid $180,000 a year for that job, and for 3 days a week. I mean, that's insane. But that's the sort of jobs that are going around universities now. Now, I think that person is really an agitator. I think they're there to agitate for race and gender issues, that sort of thing. So my guess is they're on the globalist payroll in effect. Now there's also at the same university the director of diversity, so social and racial and sexual proclivity diversity is paid over $400,000 a year, and that's before the overseas trips and all the other bits and pieces that go with it. So $400,000 a year for being a fucking diversity officer. I mean, gee, it's hard to imagine, but $180,000 a 3-day-a-week job. So that's the sort of money that these people are being paid, but they're in effect on the globalist payroll. They are there to promote and push globalization and all the feed-in issues that support it and underwrite it and facilitate it. That's their job. If you look now at the people that support and enable globalization, they're paid better than most jobs around. They're an engineer in charge of building a major bridge is paid less than a diversity officer. And you look at say an engineer with civil engineer, say for example, 5 years experience, somewhere between 5 and 10 years experience, maybe in a mid-sized organisation, but they're still a very responsible role. They're signing off on some pretty serious construction and infrastructure type works and subsections of work. And they've got this. They may be being paid $120,000, $130,000 a year with this 3-day-a-week student relations officer is paid $180,000 a year. That's how crazy things are, and that's where the money isn't going to productive pursuits anymore. It's going into ideological pursuits, as evidenced in universities, the money they're paying. So my take on this is that students are paying a lot of money for a much lower standard of education, a lot of bullshit courses being thrown in. They're being forced in accounting to also do a module on transgender bathrooms and that sort of thing. So they're even trying to sort of inculcate them with pro-globalist facilitating propaganda and attitudes and views. But really, they're coming out with these burdened by these large debts for a piss poor education, and really the tragedy is they're getting screwed, but they still come out thinking that it's the patriarchy or white supremacy is the problem. No, it's not. You're being screwed by the globalists. That's the problem. That's my take on things. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.